Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from Townhall.com dated October 13th, and it says the well-deserved utter humiliation of Palestinian terrorists and their friends, which is something I've very much been waiting to see. I thought there was a subheading, never mind. I'm reading way too fast for my own good. Anywho, it says, there's a lot of rejoicing in America, Israel, and among normal people around the world about the peace deal in Gaza, but the Palestinian terrorist huggers are heartbroken. It says, and of course, they should be. This isn't really a peace deal. This is an utter capitulation, a total surrender by the losers of Hamas who have completely and utterly failed. They started a war and they got their asses kicked yet again. Their fight from the sewers, where they hid behind women and children, was not an example of brave resistance as they steadfastly endured victimhood. Every single misery that the Palestinians have suffered over the last 2 years was utterly deserved. In fact, they deserved much, much worse. I would agree. Says that's why my beef with Israel is that it has been far too kind, because of the unique aspects of Israeli politics and culture, and because Joe Biden's puppet masters refused the total support America should have given. This absolutely necessary war has dragged on unnecessarily for 2 years. If I were in charge, this would have been over in November 2023, and the semi-human savages who started this war would use my name to scare children for the next 100 generations. That's a hell of a line. I like that idea. It says, but I'm not in charge, nor are you, nor are any of us except the Palestinians and the Israelis. It's those in charge who get to make the choices and bear the consequences. The Palestinians got here because they chose to continue a war they've been losing since 1948. The Israelis got here because they chose to not allow themselves to be murdered by the people who have been trying to kill them since 1948. But I'm not interested in history, not anymore. There's a time to argue and there's a time to fight, and it's time to fight. But you can still see people, both smart and dumb, arguing about history all over the media, both mainstream and social, yet it doesn't really matter. Certainly, the Israelis are right on the facts. It's their land, both in terms of historical precedents and the more important fact of physical reality. The owner of the land is the guy who you can't knock off it. That's how history works. Here, history just happens to align with justice. The idea that Jews only turned up in the Holy Land in 1946 after Hitler failed to complete his Holocaust is utter nonsense, and people pushing it know that. They don't care. History is just another weapon for them in their quest for actual genocide, like Kalashnikovs, flotillas of moronic Westerners, hey Greta, how are you, how'd that go, and suicide bombers. That it's all a lie doesn't matter to them in the least. Their idols are the people who invented Pallywood and made stars of the guys who would portray honor students, it says doctors, so honor students, doctors, and future Nobel Prize winners who just happen to be murdered by the Israelis for no reason, and whose deaths, complete with subtle breathing by the ubiquitous thespians, just happen to be captured on video by their fake reporters. Scrolling way down. It says the real weapon of Hamas, though, is the suffering of their own people. With it, and its documentation, both real and fraudulent, they hope to leverage the humanity of Westerners to get them to choose suicide rather than righteous resistance to jihadi savagery. It doesn't just work on millions of morally illiterate leftists and some ridiculous idiots on the right in America and Europe. It even works on some Israelis. The October 7th atrocities fell mostly on the leftist peace people in the Jewish state who were trying to show solidarity with the Palestinians by living adjacent to Gaza. They died at the hands of the people they wanted to be friends with, horribly, but that didn't stop many on the Israeli left from trying to undermine the war. Some people will choose suicide over admitting they were wrong. And if you didn't know that, the people that Hamas ended up killing on October 7th in those kibbutzes were basically people who were trying to be their friends, and they just went and killed them anyway. They didn't care. And what they were wrong about was considering the Palestinians a wonderful but misunderstood people. In reality, it is a broken and hideous culture, poisoned by radical Islam and the humiliation of being defeated again and again and again by the tiny Jewish outpost that would still be a barren desert if the Israelis had not made the desert bloom. That's correct. That whole place was basically just desert and there was nothing there. And then the Jews came in, bought land, and turned it into what it is now. So you can say the Arabs or the Muslims or whoever you want to call them weren't doing anything with it, and the Jews turned it into something. The prosperity and freedom of Israel shame them in their squalor and despotism. It drives the hate that is central to their society. They train their little kids to be terrorists, and these little kids grow up to be terrorists. Mommy and Daddy were so proud, delighted when their disgusting spawn called from the bloody kibbutzes to brag about killing unarmed Jews. As gruesome as the Hamas degenerates are, it wasn't just Hamas. The Palestinians elected Hamas, and they still support Hamas. They got what they voted for. But what they voted for is aesthetically displeasing, at least to some. Their supporters show photographs of the devastation inherent in urban combat as if this is supposed to be an indictment of Israel. It's not. If you start a war, you need to be prepared to lose it. The Palestinians should be especially prepared because they always lose. They've lost here, completely and decisively, and by agreeing to this peace deal, they've accepted total defeat. President Trump and the other participants in the deal must pretend it's an agreement among equals, but we don't. Hamas lost and grabbed this lifeline like the craven and cowardly losers they are. And this was not the first or second or third or fourth time that they've been offered a peace deal. It's the first time they've accepted it, but they keep getting offered things. Like Israel is basically kicking their ass, and they're like, "Do you guys want to stop?" And Hamas is like, "No." Says, but they'll keep trying. Of course, they being Hamas. Says, as of this writing, they haven't done it yet, but I fully expect some shenanigans when the time comes to release the hostages. And the hostages, thankfully, are back home. They're still looking for some of the dead ones right now that Hamas is saying. So it's breaking the deal is what Hamas has already done, which shouldn't be a surprise. Says, I hope that Donald Trump doesn't accept their insulting petulance and that he turns the IDF on what's left of Hamas with its full fury should it back out of the deal it was forced to take. I 1000% agree with that. Says, let me be honest, if it weren't for the potential of getting the hostages out, I would want Hamas to back out because I want the terrorists to be destroyed utterly, completely, and in detail. As do I. Says, that's what you do to an enemy who would love nothing more than to rape and murder everybody you love. All we normal, civilized people ever asked for was to be left alone, but that doesn't seem to be a viable option. So, we should exercise the option where we crush them. So please don't tell me about poor Palestinian civilians who are absolutely complicit in their own misery. We are not morally obligated to care more about Palestinians than Palestinians do, and we should not. And that has been one of my major lines that I've said all the time is, why am I supposed to care about Palestinians when they don't care about themselves? Okay, just not going to happen. Because we should care about our own people more, and protecting our own requires annihilating Hamas, even when it hides, as it always does, behind the skirts of women, and behind children too, mind you, as they're not brave warriors, despite the ridiculous propaganda of communist morons here in the West. They are cowardly thugs and psychotic incels, there you go, who yearn for the chance to rape something that's not a local boy or is without 4 legs, for once. Wow, going really hard there. Says the sexual aspect of October 7th doesn't get the attention it should, both to protect the victims and because normal people are so repelled by it, but understand that it was and remains an animating factor in their atrocities. Their sexual abuse of Israelis and their sexual abuse of women of the West when they come here is an attempt to expiate the total humiliation of their utter defeat in war at the hands of better, tougher, and braver men. The Palestinians are a broken people, and, ideally, they should be broken up and distributed among their brethren with Gaza left a wasteland, a memorial to what happens to savages when civilizations fight back. I am not opposed to that idea. Says, but the other, like I said here, but the other Arab nations don't want them. That's correct. They've been kicked out of a lot of places because they always try to take over and they cause problems everywhere they go, and countries just go, we're done. We don't want you here. Get the hell out. Says, Egypt is right there and it won't let them in. It's too smart for that. When they retreated into Jordan after losing their genocidal gambit in 1948, the Palestinians repaid their host by fomenting a bloody civil war. They did the same when they fled into Lebanon. Everything they touched, they destroyed because of their humiliation-fueled hatred. No, the Arab world is done with them. Thanks to Donald Trump, who showed he was the strong horse by castrating the mullahs in a single evening with a flight of B-2s, and to the Israelis, who showed they were another strong horse by beeping Hezbollah into nothingness, the Arab world has come around. They're sick of the Palestinians' crap, and they've made it known that there's no help coming. Hopefully, the bitterness of this rejection by their co-religionists will teach the Palestinians a lesson, but I doubt it. Yeah, I'm highest possible doubting there. As their pals in the West who demanded a ceasefire are very upset that they finally got one. A ceasefire was supposed to leave Hamas in place to prepare and plot for the next round of attacks on the Jewish state, with the ultimate goal of finishing what Hitler started. You know, from the river to the sea and all that. But if this peace deal goes the way it's intended, and that's going to take some knocking heads together, there's not going to be another round. The leftist dream of Israel being burned to ashes, followed by the rest of the West, was fueled by kindling consisting of dead Palestinians, and now it's over. The dream of a Palestinian state is kaput by popular demand. Impotent Europeans and Canadians can pretend there is one, but the countries that matter, that's America, Israel, and the Arab nations, are not playing that. While the Palestinians have to live in impotent humiliation after losing yet again, spare a giggle at the pain of our own fellow travelers in Europe and America. Now, even at some level, these tools, in every sense of the word, understand that the Palestinians they drool over would murder them in a heartbeat, pausing only for some of the usual sexual abuse. After all, the fellow travelers are infidels. We laugh at the queers for Palestine, marching for the people who would throw them off buildings, but you need to understand what drives this. It has nothing to do with, quote-unquote, Palestine. This is just another facet of the communist unicause, or omnicause, as well as it's called. Because how do you think that spastic little troll Greta Thunberg, morphed from climate weirdo to Hamas cheerleader so smoothly? All this stuff is an aspect of the same ideological pathology. They hate us, the normal people of the West. The very viciousness the Palestinians show is a selling point to them. They hate their own people, these keffiyeh-clad idiots. It's the manifestation of a cultural daddy issue, except instead of showing daddy what for by getting a stupid tattoo or a piercing, they do it by supporting savages who would murder everyone they ever met. Now, more than ever, we need to support Israel. The clowns in our own party, that's Republicans of course, who are upset because Israel dared fight back and the result was aesthetically displeasing, are foolish and weak. They aren't anti-war, they're only anti-us defending ourselves. Every penny spent on Israel's defense is a penny spent on our defense. Hamas and those like them don't just want to murder Israelis, they want to murder Americans, and that is no truer statement has ever been spoken. Because they did murder Americans, and those Americans must be avenged. I don't remember how many were killed on October 7th, that is Americans, but there absolutely were, just in case you're wondering. So they don't want to be a part of a Republican Party that has lost its ability to understand the concept of righteous retribution, nor do I want to be a part of a party that allows third world primitives to lay their filthy fingers on our citizens without reaping the whirlwind. The problem is not that we gave Israel aid. The problem is that we didn't give Israel enough aid fast enough, you can thank Joe Biden for that, as well as the okay to do whatever the Israelis needed to do to excise the cancer of Hamas before it could metastasize further. It says, for the drooling mouth breathers who will insist that in the comments on X that I've taken AIPAC money or something, it's because they don't have any other argument. I don't need to be bribed to take civilization's side in a fight. Israel's interests in this matter are America's interests. This peace deal, if its terms are ruthlessly enforced when the scumbag Palestinians inevitably attempt to backtrack, is in America's interest because it unites the Arab world with us and eliminates a source of conflict. But the prerequisite was the total destruction of Hamas. Despite what the fools and the traitors say, that was not just in America's interest, it was in humanity's interest. Say a prayer of gratitude for Israel's victory and for ours. Excellent article, pretty much summarizes everything I would have possibly have said about this as well. I couldn't agree more. So, I'm just going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.